Good morning, world. Good afternoon, good evening, and everything good to you here, Magic Square, where good things happening from all part of the world. So, any chain or any mass adoption or mini adoption, mini apps happening and building within Web3, DeFi, CeFi, GameFi, whatever Fi you can name, we all have it. And today we have a very special guest with us today, Metis and Anthony. Hello, Anthony. How are you doing? Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good GM everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat today. The title Breaking Barriers, and I'm all about breaking barriers. Yeah, but talking about mass adoption of Web3 crypto technology is really important, especially at a time like this, as we see governments, including the U.S. government, starting to become favorable and accepting of the industry and of the idea itself. Now I think it's time for a lot of mass public education about what Web3 is and what crypto offers to society, to the global financial system, to our digital world that is increasingly a world that is increasingly becoming more and more digital every day, that passes, and all the things that are really emerging and really seeing that these two technological innovations that are going to eat up our world, which is one blockchain or crypto, and the other artificial intelligence. And so, but yeah, just to introduce myself, I'm Anthony. I'm with Metis, which is a layer two on Ethereum. I am part of the marketing team, and we started off as a optimistic roll up. We were one of Ethereum's first layer twos, and we've been in the game for a few years now, and in crypto age, we are OGs in the industry now, and I would say, even though it's only been a few years, but a lot of projects don't even make it a few years, and so we've been through all the ups and downs and topsy turviness of what's happened to our industry in the last few years. But I'm excited to chat more about what we're doing and our topic today. So thanks for having me.
Indeed, very happy to have one of the cyberpunks. I'm very impressed, and I was very ready to talk about it. I was so much excited because cyberpunk concept to me is so much deep, and that's actually basically how blockchain was created. But we are not going to roll back too much deep in a back in time, but we're actually going to talk about present right now. So DeFi has been changing humanity, community, popularity in different ways, like from financial privacy, security to cultural fi and actually even politify. But I have a question to you as a cyberpunk. How do you actually think DeFi changing the way we think about everything what matters for humanity?
Yeah, so I think DeFi really is transforming the way people think about finances in particular, because right now, and I think a lot of the general public, I think a lot of people don't even realize how monitored or how surveilled or how non-confidential your electronic transactions are, which are all basically bank to bank right now. And you really have not much privacy in your current financial system, especially when it comes electronically. And that's what crypto was created to become electronic cash. Cash meaning that it's peer to peer, meaning that you custody it, not a bank, not somebody else. It's in your custody, and you could uh, you know, make transactions that are peer to peer, that doesn't have to go through a middleman. There are no intermediaries, which in today's financial system is full of intermediaries. That introduces a couple challenges or problems. One being cost. You have to pay these intermediaries to execute these financial transactions, things like that. Or if you think about remittances, people sending money to cross border to other countries, usually have to pay a good amount just to get that through. You got like currency exchanges when you land in another country and it's a different currency you have to use. that cost. That's a fee just to um, uh, change your currency from your home currency to the country that you're visiting. It also, so one thing is it's costly. Another thing, the current financial system is, quite slow, especially when you think about like wire transfers from bank to bank. That takes a few days to process. Or if you do like credit card transactions, you might see the balance change on your app, like your credit card app, but that actually doesn't settle for at least a few days. The wire transfers, or yeah, and like if when you're paying off your credit card, it's usually like a transfer from your bank account to pay off the credit card institution, and so that usually takes a few days. So it's costly, it's slower, and then the other one is the one that this question is about is privacy. You're basically government can like just hit up one of these institutions that you're using, some banking institution, and ask for your financial records. If you withdraw 10K or more from your bank, at least here in the U.S., it has it's investigated, or it can be investigated. It triggers, it sets off a basically a uh, it can set off an audit on your own account and seeing where that 10K is, and so you don't really have control like over your own money when you have it, in banks and using the traditional financial system. And so DeFi really explores, like there's a tension between transparency, because DeFi is transparent. You can go on the Etherscan or and look up every transaction that's happening on Ethereum, see all the wallet transactions. Um, but there's a tension between transparency and confidentiality, and so the original premise, and the cypherpunk premise or the crypto anarchist premise of crypto of blockchain was to uh, have a private self custody digital cash ecosystem, peer to peer ecosystem. And right now we have public blockchains where anyone can watch all the transactions that are happening. And so you got really great sleuths that are out there that can, track down like who's making what transaction, because there's different ways. And if you somehow connect your wallet to your identity, your personal identity, now everyone can see um what you're doing. And so if you're using a blockchain and using crypto, you have to be consciously private and make do things that keep your financial confidentiality intact. If you connect your wallet somehow, maybe you shared it with somebody, just your public address. Now that person knows your public address, and if they want, they can monitor your wallet and watch what you're doing. Or you got apps now that are really cool where you can track like smart wallets that that have a lot of money or make a lot of gains, and you can copy their trades because you can see everything they're doing. Now, the original premise, like I said, of crypto was to actually be private and anon, and we don't have that right now. I mean, we do have some, but it's not the mainstream thing in Web3 right now, being having anonymous transactions or private transactions. You got things like Monero, but those type of protocols are few and far between. You have things like Secret. So it's building, and it will happen. Privacy will be embedded in blockchain, and I know there's a lot of protocols like on Ethereum, for example, that are working on this. You got Aztec, which is a layer two that's been building for a couple years, and they're building a privacy focused layer two. So, I mean, there it's interesting because we have maybe blockchain, which maybe we look at Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other one, Solana, as maybe the greatest surveillance tools ever created, because everything's on the public blockchain and verifiable and immutable. But if so, it's like I said, it could be it's kind of a paradox, because it could be the greatest surveillance tool ever devised, or if we make it private, moving forward, it's really gonna transform our global financial system and expand financial services that are basically closed off to most people on the planet. including Americans. But of course, Americans have more access to financial services, but there's a lot that regular people still don't have access to that DeFi will offer in a private peer to peer self custody way.
Indeed, there is a lot of transparency and a lot of social fi and everything what comes to the asset management and why we're actually looking forward so much for decentralization. But I also want to speak out loud about how does actually what kind of role does community play when we build in decentralization? Because I always say that Web3 has been built by builders for builders and by the believers for believers and dreamers for dreamers. So the community plays an essential role when it comes to mass adoption and OGs and much more. But what do you take? What is your take on community?
Yeah, so to me, community is the heart of blockchain and Web3, and that's what really that's one of the main things that drew me into crypto and Web3 was yeah, I've originally started off just um, investing and trading like Ether and Bitcoin and just the basic stuff, Doge, things like that. But it was when I really, it was just like a hey, just I'm just trying to make some money, on this crypto stuff. See people making money from the from the 2017 run up, and then you know you're just like okay, cool. It started becoming a little more something paying attention to. So then getting into it, but then I realized how much how community centered and community focused the in Web3 was or crypto is, and that crypto is an industry that really tries to basically decentralize power and resources and decentralized like opportunities for people where it's not like today's traditional society where a lot of wealth and power decision making access to opportunities is very centralized. It's not super fair. It's not really distributed. Opportunities aren't very distributed evenly across the board. Some people are just born into situations where they have access to more opportunities. And it's not about having equal outcomes, it's about having equal opportunities. And I think that's what Web3 really is pushing for and building is equal financial opportunities and more than that because Web3 will expand just the financial system, but that's the main thing right now that I think it's being used for DeFi, and one of the main things that it'll transform and what'll bring mass adoption, it's like do things like real world assets, but I digress a bit. Um but yeah, so like I said, it's like Web3 is really about expanding and decentralizing opportunities and allowing regular people from across the world, whether you're in North America or South Africa or Southeast Asia or Europe, or doesn't matter, anywhere across the board, anywhere across the world, will have the same access to the same financial opportunities. And now it's on you, and you have a role. The community has a role in determining and governing the the projects that you're a part of, the protocols you're taking part in. Many are like that. But I can even just talk about my own experience. I am in the position I am today because I was an active community member. I became when Metis came out. This is when the layer two started coming to the scene, coming on the scene. Started gathering attention. As Ethereum's future. Metis was the one that stuck out to me the most, and so I use my own self agency to just get involved, start connecting with the community on crypto Twitter, of course. That's where the Web3 community is really at, and just getting involved and making my presence known in the community of Metis, and the team taking notice of me and things like that, and becoming a community ambassador. Metis had a community ambassador program, so I joined that, and that was how I found my way into the marketing team for Metis. And so that is how much or how community focused this industry is and how much Metis is, and um, how much opportunities there are for people who are just active community members. And that could be something like a community manager. You can be somebody, a content creator. There's a bunch of different ways, and you can also play an active role in, like I said, determining the direction of many of the protocols that you participate in. So Metis, for example, we have community ecosystem governance where Metis token holders, and it doesn't matter how much you hold, you can hold zero point 0.1 Metis, um, are uh, able to participate in governing our ecosystem and approving projects so we can have co-marketing opportunities together. That's what just happened with Magic Square. You all went through our CEG process, and now we're collaborating and doing co-marketing, and this is good for our ecosystem, good for our DApps. So community just plays a huge role in this industry. It's really what this industry is about, and it's really about people power, and that's what drew me here. And so there's also, like in the last question, there's a tension between transparency and confidentiality. In this question, there's also become somewhat of a growing tension between community centered, community focused, community powered industry, as governments and Wall Street institutions are starting to get um, you know into our industry. Now it's like how much power, how many resources, how many opportunities might be taken away from the typical Web3 community member, now that you're gonna have big players, institutions getting involved, governments getting involved into the industry. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think like it's really important for us to take notice of that and maintain the core ethos of Web3 or crypto, the cypherpunk values, the crypto anarchism, the people who created this, and what we're still living today. We're still more. I mean, we could there could be you could argue either way. Maybe crypto has lost its way. You see things like some people think say the meme coin craze is just like so speculative, and so you see all the things that happen like with Pump Fun and all the tragedies that happen. It's kind of like the worst of our industry, but when those kind of things happen. But on the other side, there's still a lot of core ethos that people are living by. And in Ethereum, I think I really admire Ethereum. I feel like Ethereum has, through all it's been and how major it is, it keeps that core ethos of Web3 and being community based and decentralized. And that also comes with some struggles, though. Sometimes, Ethereum's, having, or what it maybe on the outside looks like, an identity crisis. People are like, who's the leader, or what, like, what is Ethereum? Solana's gaining ground, XRP is gaining ground on Ethereum. They're lobbying the U.S. government. They're having marketing initiatives, and Ethereum, it's like, is so decentralized, and it's still got ways to go to be even more decentralized. But right now, Ethereum is so decentralized that it may look on the external, like, to the external, like there's no guiding path or something. But that's because it's really up to the community, up to the protocol builders on Ethereum, things like that, to decide what happens with Ethereum, how it moves forward. But at the end of the day, Ethereum is a technology, and not a business. And so that's why you don't see things like lobbying and stuff like that. But so to me, I say all that to say that I feel like that allows the way Ethereum approaches its identity as a technology and not a business. It leaves room for the community, and the community of builders, the community of users, the community of holders, um, of Ethereum, to determine its path forward. And so I think that's a really good example of how community really plays a huge role in the success and maintenance of networks through decentralization.
Indeed, very agree on everything what you have said. And yes, it's quite interesting to see how the mass adoption will be happening next after recent news and recent activity of different directions, yeah, and different infrastructures. But I also want to touch a bit of the background of what actually limits right now the DeFi mass adoption, because back in the time there were few much less information what blockchain is, what exchanges are, how do I create my wallet, what types of wallets are there. I mean, for the regular member of the ecosystems, and multi-chain experience and much more. Right now, of course, it's much easier. You can go to YouTube, you can go to even to Twitter and find any relevant information, or to ask ChatGPT at least. Or, for example, Magic AI on the Magic Store, just go and ask and be on board to Web3 and best user cases. Still, what's blocking us to be very pro DeFi?
Yeah, I would say, one of the things you touched on, like, there's more resources out there for people to learn now, but it's still quite sparse. I think it's still tough to learn about blockchain and DeFi. Even though you can, it's much better than when I started. And I know when I started, I couldn't really find anything. I couldn't find any books or resources, YouTube videos, articles. I couldn't find much. I would be scouring, Google and every browser every search engine that I could, and I would just, find whatever I could find. I would read or watch, but there wasn't much, and it was hard to really to learn and feel comfortable about what I'm uh, learning about. And so I would say the learning curve was quite large when starting to become a actual, not just a trader and investor in crypto, but like actual user of like DeFi. Um, and so I would say that is still an issue. There's a lot more resource out there for people to learn, but it is, even so, there's still a large learning curve because it represents or offers talking about blockchain and DeFi. They offer a lot of new concepts and a lot of new ways of thinking about the world, of thinking about finances. A lot of people don't even understand finances, don't even know the fundamentals of that. So you have to learn that first and then then you have to learn how the traditional financial system works, start realizing what blockchain and DeFi offer. And so that's the learning curve. That can take, a few weeks to just, wrap your mind around. And then you got to learn about the actual protocols themselves and how to use them and all the different financial. And there's so many terms that are always coming out. Like I can't even keep up. So this industry is really it moves like it might seem slow to people, I think, because of price action, but really like when you're in it, like it moves like a mile a second or 100,000 miles a second. It feels like because there's always new protocols with new innovations and new terminologies and new technologies, and sometimes it might be the same as another protocol, but they're calling it a different term, and so it sounds different, and you got to study what they're doing, and then you realize it's the same as this other thing but it's a different terminology. So when you're first coming into as a user of blockchain and DeFi, it's so overwhelming. And even for, I think, people, I can speak for myself. I feel like I'm speaking for a lot of others though as well that work in the industry. It's hard, even as a person working in the industry, it's so hard to keep up with everything. And even I feel overwhelmed, and I've always feel like I don't know enough because there's so many different things that blockchain and DeFi touch on that you can't be an expert in everything. So you have to, but you do have to start learning a lot about a lot, to really understand the nuts and bolts of this industry and of the technology. And but I think I think as one of the factors currently limiting mass adoption is that the education. So that's what we really need to do, even for these institutions like from Wall Street that are coming in, and even these governments that are coming in now. Um, I think they don't even fully understand blockchain and DeFi and its full potential, and I think some do, but I think generally I don't think they fully understand it as well. Um, so them and just everyday people, I think there needs to be a lot more educational materials and ways to onboard people in a way that actually sets people up for success when they're using when they're using DeFi. The other factor I would say is a user experience. You also touched on, like, user experience is, I don't even know. I don't even know if I can say it's gotten better. It might not have gotten better the whole time that it's been around. Like, it's still pretty. I guess depending on which network you're using or which protocols you're using. You can say if it's gotten better or not, but user experience is still a huge uh, obstacle and limiting factor for mass adoption because all the wallets, all the different chains you can use, all the interoperability problems, even within own ecosystems like Ethereum's ecosystem's not even fully interoperable yet. So imagine Ethereum to Solana or Block or Bitcoin, things like that. So those type of things make it really hard for people to feel comfortable using the technology and feel comfortable putting their money into this technology and moving their money around when you can one mistake you can lose everything, send it to a wrong address or something like that. So we really there's a lot of things we need to work on to make user experience better. And so I would say that's the other limiting factor. So I would just say like educational resources and user experience are definitely limiting mass adoption of blockchain and DeFi. So I think once we get those down, especially the user experience, the user experience itself can be an educational resource because the best way to learn is by doing. And so if you have good user experience, people are going to start using and they'll start learning. So I think once we get that down, mass adoption will get a lot easier, a lot better. Because right now, I think a lot of the general public like are gonna enter Web3, not actually entering Web3, but through um, exchanges like Coinbase or Robinhood, where they're not even actually using a chain. They're just trading tokens on a centralized exchange. So we don't want that though. We want people to actually understand the value of self custody, of peer to peer transactions, things like that.
Indeed, because decentralization is what we needed, and it should be owned by humans. Speaking of humans, so are we becoming more digitalized, or is blockchain becoming more human? Yeah, are we human in digital form, or blockchain is actually a human?
That's a good question, and I didn't know this one was gonna be on here. And I actually, this is a question. This is the type of stuff I like to think about all day too on my free time. All these like abstract things that are happening in the world. I like to think very deep about it. So it's a good question. Is humanity becoming digitalized, or is blockchain becoming more human? And I think it's a mix of both, and I also think it's really up to us as humans or as humanity that will determine if we become machine, if man becomes machine, or if machine becomes man. Um, and I don't know. I'm not sure how it's gonna end up, but I think right now what it's looking like is, um, I think a little bit of both are happening. I think humanity is definitely becoming digitized. Like, you know, everything's becoming electronic and digital now. Like, and including our financial system. But you can look at documents. If we're, before, if a government or a business would have files, they were all just a bunch of papers and a bunch of what do you call them, cabinets. That was the files that you had. Maybe if you're working on a collaborative piece like an article or an essay or something, it would be like on a piece of paper that you would share and read off of, or maybe have your own two different copies that you're writing, and then merge them together. In the end, now you have Google Docs and things like that. So humanity's in its services and the functions of humanity are becoming digitized. But in terms of like technology or blockchain becoming more human, I think it can, um, especially with the advent of artificial intelligence. I think if we can humanize AI, we can make sure that blockchain becomes more human and human centric and becomes more of like another human helper for humanity, as opposed to this kind of obsidious like non-human technology, digital technology that is smarter than you, works faster than you, makes more money than you, liquidates you. Like, it can become that, or it becomes just this machine that's just like gonna extract from humanity, or it can be a tool for humanity that is very human like because it has AI embedded in it, and so it can talk to you and things like that. But at the end of the day, Metis, we are making our own ecosystem uh, more AI centric and AI focused. But the, the core ideology of this transition for Metis is to make the ecosystem more human and less less like a this like a technical kind of um I don't know, robot or something, robotic kind of ecosystem. It's really what our idea and what we believe in is that, you know, AI informs us, but humans may still make the decisions. And so I think that's a way we can maintain humanness in blockchain and in just technology and just in our world. Um, because if we allow AI to just be used as a tool of information um and suggest like maybe the way you move forward, but doesn't actually tell you how to move forward, or doesn't like actually automatically move forward in the way it thinks best, but tells you what it thinks the best way to move forward is, and then humans make the decision and it listens. Now you are um maintaining the human-centric aspect of the technology, where the decision making is still comes down to the humans. And one of the things we're also working on at Metis is making sure that artificial intelligence, is informed by individuals and communities, um, owned by individuals and communities, and governed by individuals and communities, not big tech, or not AI governing AI, which would be crazy. So I think it's gonna take a lot of people to really think about these things and think about this question to make sure we don't end up in some dystopia where machines take over the world, and make sure that humans are still in control of the world, and are supported and helped by technology and not overrun by technology.
I also want to take an opportunity and ask an even more deeper question that I'm also asking myself quite for a while. So we already seen different kind of fi, CFI, DeFi, GameFi, whatever fi you call. But how about DNA fi? What do you think about it?
Did you say DNA fi?
I
I've never
did,
heard of
I
that, but
did.
that's pretty.
That's the
Yeah, that
case,
sounds
right?
scary.
I mean, I really, really, what immersive future we are going to have. Speaking about future and speaking of what's coming next. So, social fi and AI fi. What is the next step after it?
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's hard to say what would be next in terms of like what other maybe parts of our lives would be take or not taken over, but I guess embedded in um blockchain and financialized. I don't know if that's a word. Um but one thing I would say that I don't think is a good idea is to financialize, if that's a word, financialize everything in our world. There are some things that are greater than the sum of money. That some things cannot be bought or sold. Some things cannot be quantifiably valued or measured in terms of value. You can't put a price on everything. I think what what is good with blockchain is that everything can be transacted though digitally. So I can peer to peer send you something through the blockchain to your wallet. I think it would be great to digitize as much as we can, where you can send things to people peer to peer in a digital way, an electronic way. Um, but in terms of actually making everything part of a financial ecosystem, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the best idea, but I think there are still lots of things that can be financialized, if that's the word, or tokenized. Um, and I think that's where we're heading. And right now, you're seeing AI-fi or DeFi and SocialFi, which I think one of the things that I see SocialFi, I think it'll be successful, but I don't think all media will be SocialFi. I think a lot of people love social media because it can get on it for free and it has nothing to do with the money. And a lot of people, when it comes to money, it's actually not a positive experience. It's like a negative experience. And so if I'm going into a social media ecosystem that's centered around finances, but I just want to just shit post and talk crap share funny memes. I don't want to have to deal with the finances, because maybe I don't have money or something. So I think social file will be its own like um niche or its own like ecosystem that's part of a larger social media ecosystem that we already have. But what's after AI and AI-fi and social-fi? um it's hard to say, but I think RWAs, real world assets, as I was saying, everything's gonna be tokenized. I think RWAs are gonna be, I think that's gonna be actually the main thing that drives mass adoption is real world assets, because that's what you see these Wall Street institutions talking about tokenizing things. Um, you see and that's where all of the money's going. You see a lot of infrastructure being built like Chainlink, CCIP, or Aave just announced Horizon, which is going to be integrating institutional traditional finance with DeFi. It's going to expand liquidity for our entire industry. It's going to stabilize a lot of liquidity within our industry. Probably might be less will likely be less volatile of an industry in terms of the market after institutions are brought in, but they'll be brought in through real world through RWAs. And so I think that's probably the next thing, or one of the things that's going to be coming up with AI and social fi and stuff.
Oh, indeed. So many great times happening. I know that some people already cannot imagine their life, without ChatGPT asking them, what should I eat? Do my homework and all that stuff, or asking Grok in comments on Twitter, what are your thoughts on that and what's your take on this? And even on Magic Square right now, you can go directly to the store and ask about latest Web3 news and much more. So the future is bright, and I see it's growing rapidly, and yet we are still very early. Thank you, Anthony, for joining us today. But still, I have very last question to ask you though. Why are you here right now, part of Web3, and yeah, why?
Yeah, why am I here? So I'm here because, as I mentioned earlier, I really what drove me really to become so immersed in this industry, in this world, in this ecosystem, and so interested and so involved was because I saw how community based Web3 is, and a lot of the protocols are very community based, and really trying to, um, I guess, distribute opportunities or decentralize opportunities um, for people, for everyday people. There's a lot of um, things that regular everyday people don't have access to, whether it's financial services or even digital services, or just digital experiences. There's a lot we don't have access to, and I feel like Web3 is really trying to expand that. And this is a very people, even though it's a technology and a technical industry, it's a very human centered industry and a very human centric um, technology, or at least the way it's being used is human centric. You have things like DAOs. DAO in 2021, DAOs were a huge thing. They were a narrative during the last bull run. They haven't been a huge part of the narrative for the industry as of late, or in this cycle or whatever the heck we're in, because the market's been so unpredictable in this cycle. But you don't hear about DAOs, but I think DAOs are like an amazing concept and practice that is still emerging in our industry. That's also what brought me in. I saw like DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, where the users of a protocol or the owners of a protocol's tokens um, are the ones that can determine, the future of the protocol that they're a part of, which I think is really awesome. And it brings a lot of empowerment to the individual, because now you're not just some um, uh, alienated individual who's just like a user that uses this product. You're actually essential part of the product of the protocol itself, and you're one of the decision makers. Um, and so just seeing how Web3 is really democratizing you know, a lot of things, whether it's finances and or artificial intelligence or anything else you can think of that is being put on the blockchain. I think just like the democratization of things and the decentralization of things um, is why I'm here, because I want to see this spread to people in two parts of the world that don't have access to these things. And so, yeah, so that's why I'm here. And it's really a human centric focus that I have with this technology. And that's why I'm here. And the community is awesome. And so I'll just leave it with this. Last thing I'll say is like, if you're in Web3 and if you're really trying to be really involved in this industry, even work in this industry, just remain active, be a fixture of the community that you're a part of, and you will get noticed, and opportunities will open up. We're still a startup industry, so there's a lot of openings. A lot of people are um, there's a scarcity of I guess you can say contributors or workers, whatever you want to call them. So if you can make yourself um, a presence, make your presence known, you're gonna have a good chance of finding an opportunity that opens up for you. So I'll just say that. But yeah, that's why I'm here. I really love the ethos of this industry and want to push it forward and want to make sure that the ethos is maintained, which includes privacy, decentralization, self custody, and all that.
Yeah, I only can add that I find more people and humanity in blockchain rather than in ordinary life. And this is also why I'm here. So, if you're a human like us who believe in opportunities and magic around all around you, no matter which chain you're coming from, no matter which background you're coming from, if you're looking for the full immersive decentralization experience and you wanna expand your knowledge and experience as a human being very welcome to Magic Square and very welcome to Metis because these are the places where community actually matters. Thank you so much, Anthony, for joining us today, and we are finishing the session.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.